So, hello there. My name is Douglas, and I am the Associate Pastor at South Beach Baptist Church. I'm joined by our Senior Pastor, Don, today, and we're going to do a little bit of an interview. For those of you who don't know, Don is a sports chaplain at our local junior football team, Saltcoats Victoria FC. And on Sunday, just past Sunday the 17th of May, it was National Sports Sunday. So what better time for us to talk about what sports chaplaincy is, what it involves, what it means. So Don, first and foremost, hello.
Hi there.
And can we just start off with the question? You know, we've heard you talk about it lots of times before. You mention it in reports and sermons and such like about some of your work with sports chaplaincy. But what is a sports chaplain, Don? What actually is a sports chaplain?
Sure. Okay, well, for the eagle-eyed among us, you'll hopefully see that I'm wearing a sports chaplaincy polo shirt that has the sports chaplaincy logo on it, which has in rather small writing below that, that's not just so obvious, which says, serving Scottish sport through excellence in chaplaincy. So that's our mission. What is a sports chaplain? Well, to be a sports chaplain, you've got to have a passion for God, a passion for people, a passion for sport, and be prepared to muck in and help out. And that's what gives you the access to people. Access to do what? Well, let me quote none other than Sir Alex Ferguson, formerly of Manchester United, who says this: chaplains can be of help to all sorts of people involved with sport. When crisis, need, or difficulty comes, I commend the idea of sports chaplaincy and the work of Sports Chaplaincy UK to you. So there's a fair endorsement from Sir Alex Ferguson. The reality is that chaplains, although we are Christians, you've got to go through a process of selection and training, have annual training and so forth to continue to be registered as a chaplain with sports chaplaincy. If you think, however, of many expressions of chaplaincy, and I think this would be true of, say, hospital chaplaincy and other areas of chaplaincy, if you think of hospital chaplaincy, actually the people that most need a chaplain are the folks who have maybe not got a faith, or have drifted from faith, or are just in a time of crisis or need. The reason I say that is that many of the people will have ministers or people from their own church or their own faith group that will go to visit them in hospital. So they typically have less need for a chaplain as such. Yeah. And so chaplains are often there for folks it can be spiritual care, most often it's general pastoral care. And sometimes that becomes spiritual care. The best way that I could describe that would be by giving some examples. That would take a little bit longer. We could maybe do that in another part of the interview. But it's really about being there for people. Being passionate about the sport you're involved with helps. I'm football daft, so that helps. Played a bit when I was younger. So like the lads in the team, I've been in the dressing room, I've been in the park, I've played well, I've been a complete diddy in the park. I've been a favoured player, I've not been a favoured player, and all of that. And so I have shared experience, and that gives you a little bit of access. Now, you don't have to have that, but I think from my point of view, it helps as a point of contact.
Okay, so that's great. Thanks, Don. Great sort of overview of what a sports chaplain is there. But you know, you mentioned there that a sports chaplain has lots of different roles and does lots of different things, and it's not just about you being the minister to the players or whatever. So what is it? Maybe you can share some examples here or something. But what is it that sports chaplaincy is actually all about?
Sure. It's all about being there with people and being available and being there for people. So that, for example, I do all manner of things that take up a reasonable amount of time, but what that does is it puts me in the place to be the kind of go-to person for quite a number of people. So by way of explanation then, Saltcoats Victoria Football Club was established in 1889 and has, up until roundabout right now, as you rightly said, been a junior football club. junior in Scotland is a particular status for semi-professional football, a level at which I played when I was younger. So, but now there's been a move to join the SFA's pyramid system, and so there's a new league in the west of Scotland called the West of Scotland Football League that Saltcoats Victoria have now joined. And so we'll be part of the, the pyramid system that I won't bother going into the detail of, but basically, the top 4 divisions of Premiership, Championship, League 1, League 2 are tiers 1 to 4. We'll be in tier 7. So we're a smaller club, be further down, as it were, but be part of the whole setup that's part of the SFA and the SPFL, which is in a little bit of crisis right now, but that's another story. So we're that kind of football club. And we'll be alongside other clubs that are in West Central Scotland and including Ayrshire, but throughout kind of Greater Glasgow, Lanarkshire, and Ayrshire really is the teams that will be is where the teams will be located that we'll be playing against. So, if I use some examples, if I'm to be at training, for example, some of my colleagues are younger and fitter than I am and used to play, so they can actually fully participate in a training session with the permission of the management team. I don't do that, but I'm regularly there at training. And yes, I am the guy that's sometimes carrying the cones or the medical bag or whatever, and just doing that, being there to kind of help, to serve, to be part of what's happening and so on. Occasionally, I'm helping out by being a ball boy, do that sometimes, and occasionally by helping a little bit in some of the routines, or maybe if the lads are playing 5-a-sides, for example, but it's in an open park and the ball's straying a bit, I'm the guy that's going getting it, pitching it back, and occasionally maybe I'm helping to pop some balls into some people, at which point, I may get a comment like, "Horev, you can still scalp a ball," and that kind of thing. So that just gives you a little bit of contact, but you get that by being alongside people. So at a club like Saltcoats Victoria, we have a committee. Because I'm the kind of guy that gets involved in doing stuff, I was asked to become a committee member, and I'm now, and have been for some time, the club secretary, which is a fairly significant position. I don't mean that to blow my own trumpet, but rather just to describe it. I do quite a lot of the administration. I do all the player registrations and so forth. So you've got the committee that help to run the team. You then get the management team, and at the moment we've got a manager, we've got an assistant manager, and we've got a goalkeeping coach. We've then got the players, and up until now we would have had around about 25 players. We can now have unlimited, but it'll end up being in the order of 25 or so. That'll be the pool of players that you'll call upon to play in the match. And then you've got supporters. And if I can say, I have been involved pastorally with fellow committee members, with management team, with players and supporters. So, for example, with fellow committee members, there could be a situation of personal crisis that could be a work-related thing for them, and I'm the person they can talk to about that. Yeah. And I can be a listener here, I can give some advice, I can give a bit of support, and if they're not a person who has a personal faith, I'll maybe say, if it's okay with you, I'll be praying for you. Most folks are completely taken aback, because to us that's really normal, but for somebody that maybe doesn't have a personal faith, that's like, wow, you would do that for me kind of thing. Yeah. It would be the case that, for example, I would have taken the funeral of a family member of a fellow committee member, for example, and I was asked to do that essentially because of my role as a sports chaplain. If I look at the management team, then consider the situation of somebody who was previously part of our management team, who had his young son die on him suddenly, unexpectedly, and who does somebody like that look to? Yeah. And I've been quite involved with that person and with their family in an ongoing way, giving pastoral support to them through a time of struggle. With regard to supporters, without mentioning any names, some folks will know that I've done a couple of scatterings of ashes down at Campbell Park with a family group and some fellow committee members, and that kind of thing, for someone who's a lifelong Saltcoats Vics supporter. And so that's a little church service that I've done with a scattering of ashes with a group of different people there. As far as players are concerned, my goodness, I could give you examples all day long, but I'll select a few and clearly won't be mentioning names or whatever. But one could think that, for example, at the moment, there could well be somebody within our players that maybe they've got a relative that has or has suspected COVID-19. I'm the guy they might speak to in that situation. Yeah. I've had somebody that said, "Horev, can I have a word?" And what actually transpired was this was a lad who had been had just gone through a relationship breakup, and as a result of that was drinking copious amounts, and I mean copious amounts of alcohol. And he told me how much he was drinking. He said, "That can't go on, can it?" I said, "No, if you want to stay alive and if you want to play football, certainly not." Yeah. And so we worked out together a little plan, you know, to cut down and for him, with mutual agreement, to make himself accountable to me for what he was drinking. And the lad's been in a great place since then.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very much like it's, you know, like it's really all about relationship.
It is. Yes, it is.
You know, it's about being there. It's about being part of something. You know, and just, you know, to kind of just to pick up on that a little bit and maybe take it a wee bit further. Like, obviously, you know, one of the things that we're trying to do as a church is, you know, we're trying to serve the community. We're trying to be there for the community. You know, how have you found that your involvement in, you know, sports chaplaincy has helped you to become more of a servant within the community? Because obviously there's the example of, you know, being involved with manager, players, and supporters and all the rest of it. But I mean, I'm kind of asking you this question because I know you've told me some stories, you know, just of the sort of wider impact you've been able to have, you know, sort of outside of the football club role, just because you are that figure and you're known as the chaplain at Saltcoats Fix. Yes.
Well, you know, life doesn't sit in silos that are all separated. You know what I mean? And so somebody who is a Saltcoats Fix supporter also works locally, and then I see them down the street, or I know some people in the church that know that individual, and that kind of thing. So all these things then become kind of interlocking circles. And somebody in those circumstances is maybe somebody that you might say, I don't know, invite to a special event at church or that kind of thing. It's also the case that Campbell Park, where we play, is pretty much diagonally opposite Auchenharvie Academy, where you and I both have a chaplaincy involvement. And I've had some conversations with some folks that are also involved with Auchenharvie, either as teachers or involved in some other way, about perhaps establishing further links between Auchenharvie and Saltcoats Victoria, for example. You know, I've bumped into people down the street, and the interesting thing is they know who I am, but I won't know who they are necessarily. And I've actually had a player's parent, you know, meet me down in Dockhead Street and say, "Excuse me, are you Rev Don? It's the chaplain at Saltcoats. Aye, thanks a lot for helping my lad out." You know what I mean? I've had stuff like that happening. And so these things become kind of overlapping circles, really. And the reality is that as things stand right now, all of our committee either live in the three towns or certainly North Ayrshire, all local folks. Our management team, one of the guys is North Ayrshire, just not up the road, not in the three towns, but not far away. Some of our players are three towns North Ayrshire, some come from a little further, and that's pretty normal these days. But the point being, there's still former players that I'll bump into in the street, and they'll, you know, stand and talk for ages and ask how things are going and all that kind of thing. So all of that and more goes on. And so, you know, my involvement with church life, my involvement with Auchenharvie Academy, my involvement with, you know, Saltcoats Victoria, you know, then becomes all a bit of a seamless garment that's sewn together, you know.
Yeah, brilliant. So obviously, what we've been talking about has been very football centric,
Yeah,
which you and I both love, being great fans of football.
yeah,
However, I'm conscious that it's not National Football Sunday.
yeah,
It's National Sports Sunday. So
sure.
so sports chaplaincy only just for football,
Yeah.
or is it wider than that? Tell us a little bit about that.
No, very fair question. I think it would be reasonable to say that football is probably the most kind of popular sport in the UK and probably worldwide. So it tends to be the biggest player in that regard. But you're absolutely right. It is not the only player. Warren Evans, who's a very fine guy, who's our CEO of Sports Chaplaincy UK, was a chaplain in rugby league and played rugby league himself and that kind of thing. So rugby union, rugby league. We've got chaplains in Scotland at certainly I'm not sure exactly how many right now, but in several of our rugby clubs, for example.
Mm-hmm.
We've now got a kind of growing network of chaplains who are formally attached to gyms.
Right.
To folks who would go, they're regular gym users themselves,
Sure.
and they've become a sports chaplain, and they're then, because they regularly go, whatever times of the day, you tend to get to know the pool of people that's round about, and maybe they do something as simple as what I'm doing right now. They'll train while they're wearing their sports chaplaincy polo shirt or t-shirt or something like that. And they're like, all right, what's that mean? And, and it'll generate conversation and so on. So there's a wide range. So not only, of course, is there men's football, there's women's football. We've got some terrific chaplains in it, some of the main women's football teams. And if I can say in particular, there are two girls, one who's the Rangers chaplain, one who's the Celtic chaplain, and they're both slightly bonkers, but love the girls and love football, and will be a terrific support to really quite a wide network of girls that are involved in girls football, ladies football. And quite a number of the senior teams that would have a ladies football team will also have chaplains as well. So it's a wide and growing network. Yeah. So football's probably the biggest slice, but we've got rugby, we've got gyms and other areas. In fact, there was one of the shinty clubs, I think, was trying to get, they'd heard about this thing called chaplaincy, thought that sounded really good, and they were trying to get someone. I'm not sure whether that vacancy has been filled yet, but the point is, this is growing. Yeah, and I know you were trying to get away from football maybe, but if I can just for example, if you look at the top four leagues, there are only a couple of teams that don't regularly have a chaplain, and even those that don't will maybe have a chaplain at, say, their ladies team or with their youth team or something like that. Sure. So it's a big network of folks.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. And obviously there you're just picking up on what you said there about it being a network. Being a group of people, what sort of support gets afforded to you guys as chaplains? Because obviously you guys must, you shared and just in this interview that there's a plethora of situations that you deal with, that you come across, with so many different types of people. Sure. There isn't exactly a book that tells you, the answer to everything type thing. So what sort of support is there for you guys? Obviously, you've got your local church support. You can phone me up. There's others in the church you can phone up as well. But specifically relating to guys guys and ladies who are in this particular situation, what sort of network of support is available there?
Sure. Okay. Well, Sports Chaplaincy UK, as I mentioned, Warren Evans is our CEO. In Scotland, we have Mark Fleming, who's our Scottish director. It was Mark who got in touch with me just a few months after I'd been here, really. The rest is history, as they say. So we have an annual conference in Scotland. Well, firstly, you've got to be there's a whole day training day that you've got to go to and be okay with that, and be okay with the standards and the ethics and everything that's being asked of you to be signed up as a chaplain in the first place. There's then an annual conference that you're strongly encouraged to be part of, which I've been part of every year since I've been a chaplain. Normally happens November time time. I don't know if that's going to be too soon for this year or whether we'll get to it or not.
Who knows? Yeah.
Absolutely. But the point is, again, what you meet there, you can share experience. The likes of Warren and Mark and others are there, and more experienced chaplains, folks that you can chat with things about and say, listen, I've had a situation like this. How would you deal with that, and so on. There's a lot of that happens, and it's certainly the case as far as Mark's concerned. Mark is terrific as being an on-hand support. If I've got a more urgent or delicate or not come across one of these kind of situations before, I text Mark and he's back to me, as quickly as he reasonably can be. Sure. And I'm normally just letting him know that's partly for my accountability, partly also to get prayer support. So there's very good support around. I've quite a lot, I would know, because I've now been doing it for several years. I know the guys that have been around for a few years, and every now and again some of us will phone each other up about a particular situation and so forth. So there's a very good support network. We also get ongoing training on at least 1 or 2 sessions a year. We do mental health awareness training and that kind of thing, because we've had a greater understanding of that in the world of football. When I had Fitba boots on, if you had a problem, then you'd get sworn at and laughed at, really, if you even admitted it. Whereas now we've got a much better understanding of the fact that, football players are people who have girlfriends that fall out with them and them, and all of that, who are people who have wrestling with their job situation, and what does that mean? And frankly, if a player's head is not in the right place, not only is that bad for their own personal well-being, they'll not be doing whatever, they can do to their best ability on the park,
Yeah. Brilliant, fantastic. So just before we finish, Don, there's been a whole host of things there, about what the role involves. I think it would just be really good just to be able to, give folks just a couple of things that they could potentially pray for, just as we sort of finish off. So if you could just give us so I'm looking for 2 things. So I'm looking for one thing particularly relating to your sports chaplaincy work at Saltcoats Fix, that people could be praying for, and also just one thing about sports chaplaincy in general as a whole, as an organisation, as an initiative, whether that's to do with National Sports Sunday or the influence, whatever, just one thing in relation to that as well that folks can be praying for. So just those 2 things, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think in terms of Saltcoats Victoria just now, the reality is that, along with the rest of football, we're sitting in limbo right now. So we've joined this exciting new league, the West of Scotland League, about to become part of this pyramid system. We join that and everything goes blah. You know what I mean? And we will have financial challenges like everybody else. We've not been playing games. That means we don't have any income. Not that all our income comes through the gate. It doesn't come through sponsorship and so forth, and the lottery that we run and all of that. But I think simply to pray for all of this to be able to get back, because for so many people, I think particularly for the players, it's a big part of their life. We've got everything, frankly, from whatever joiners to lawyers or however, and I don't mean that in any cheeky way or whatever, but really we've got all kinds of people, and they're training 2 nights a week and playing once a week for a whole big chunk of the year. This is a big part of their lives.
There's a real rhythm to it.
There is. So we would love to be able to we would love to be able to just get back to playing football is the first thing, and secondly, just I would value your prayer just for me to be able to continue to be available, alert, aware, to be the best chaplain that I can be for the folks involved with Saltcoats Victoria.
Brilliant. And one thing about sports chaplaincy as a whole, as an organisation initiative?
Yes, I think it would be to extend our reach, much in the way that a previous question indicated, that we would extend our reach into gyms and so on, and into other areas that are developing, into a greater number of rugby clubs, into even more women's football teams, and areas where we've got a bit less coverage. What I mean? So that getting more coverage, more scope, but also to pray then that the folks have now been doing it for a few years, and that would include me, although a good number have been doing it for many more years than I have, that the experienced folks can help the younger, and newer folks into chaplaincy, again, so that we can be the best chaplains that we can be, whether that's, in the gym, at the rugby club, at football, whatever our circumstances.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Don.
Thank you.
I mean, hopefully that's given people a really good insight into, so the next time you say, I'm chaplain at our local, well, you can't really call it local junior football team anymore, can you? But, I'm chaplain at the local team, and, I've been dealing with this situation or whatever, folk will have a little bit more of an idea as to what that actually entails and what that looks like. And obviously, just as we've just seen National Sports Sunday going past, they can be praying for what you guys are up to, and also what sports chaplains as a whole are up to across the country. So thanks so much for joining us to chat about that, Don. Thanks a lot.
My privilege. Thank you. Thank you. Bye now.